The virtual gladiator died with a scream that echoed through the arena. David Rivers wiped sweat from his forehead and removed his neural headset. Around him, thousands of other humans disconnected from their own simulated battles. The cheers were loud but hollow, like applause in an empty theater. Another perfect victory, his friend Alex muttered, stretching his back. How thrilling, David nodded absently. Even the most advanced combat simulations felt wrong somehow. Too clean, too safe, too fake. He walked through the massive entertainment complex where millions gathered daily to experience warfare through computer programs. The real thing had ended 2 centuries ago when the last human army dissolved itself after achieving perfect global peace. Outside, the city of New Geneva stretched endlessly under a dome of perfect blue sky. Weather control kept every day pleasant. Crime had vanished when poverty ended. Disease was extinct. Even aging had become optional through genetic therapy. Humanity had achieved paradise, yet the suicide rates climbed higher each year. Dr. Emily Stone finished reviewing the latest psychological reports in her office high above the city. The numbers painted a disturbing picture. Depression affected 60% of the population. Anxiety disorders were epidemic. Young people especially seemed lost, as if searching for something that no longer existed. The great malaise, she whispered, using the term psychologists had coined for humanity's mysterious unhappiness. They had everything they could want, yet wanted nothing they had. Her colleague, Dr. Martinez, entered without knocking. "Have you seen the underground fighting statistics?" he asked, dropping a data pad on her desk. "Participation is up another 20% this month." Emily glanced at the numbers. Illegal bare-knuckle boxing, underground cage matches, extreme mountaineering without safety equipment, all activities that the government officially discouraged, but quietly allowed. People needed some outlet for the strange energy that seemed to burn inside them. "It's getting worse," Dr. Martinez continued. "Yesterday I treated a patient who deliberately crashed his hovercar just to feel something real. He said the simulation crashes weren't enough anymore." Emily understood. She had been studying human psychology for decades, and one pattern emerged clearly from the data. Humans were not built for paradise. They were built for struggle, for conflict, for overcoming obstacles. Without challenges to face, they withered like plants without sunlight. General William Ward reviewed the morning briefings in the Global Defense Headquarters. His job existed mostly for show now. The military had become a historical society, maintaining museums and teaching ancient battle tactics to curious academics. Real soldiers were extinct, replaced by ceremonial guards who had never seen combat. His aide, Lieutenant Foster, brought him reports about alien contact preparations. For 50 years, humanity had been sending signals into space and building protocols for peaceful first contact. Every plan assumed aliens would be friendly or at least reasonable. The possibility of hostile contact was mentioned only in classified documents that nobody read. "Sir, the deep space sensors detected something unusual last week," Lieutenant Foster said. "3 objects moving through the outer system. They're too small to be asteroids and moving too precisely to be natural." Ward felt a strange stirring in his chest, something he had not experienced in years. "Have we made contact?" "Not yet, sir. The objects seem to be scanning our outer planets. The Science Council wants to send a greeting message." Ward nodded, but privately wondered why anyone would scan planets unless they were evaluating them for some purpose. In the old days, armies sent scouts ahead before invasion, but those days were long gone and such thinking was considered paranoid. Meanwhile, in the entertainment districts, people lined up for the newest virtual reality experience called Ancient Wars. Players could command Roman legions, lead medieval knights, or pilot World War II fighter planes. The waiting list stretched for months. Combat sports dominated every entertainment channel, even though the fights were carefully staged to prevent real injury. Sarah Blake worked as a historian studying humanity's violent past. Her research revealed something troubling that she rarely discussed publicly. Throughout history, humans had been exceptional at warfare, not just good at it, but brilliant, creative, adaptable, ruthless when necessary. They had developed military strategies and weapons that other Earth species could never imagine. "We were apex predators," she told her small class of graduate students. "Not because we were strongest or fastest, but because we could think like our enemies, adapt to any situation and never give up. War was our specialty." One student raised her hand. "But Professor, isn't it good that we've evolved beyond violence?" Sarah paused, choosing her words carefully. Perhaps. But evolution doesn't work that fast. We still carry the same minds that conquered this planet, the same instincts that made us survivors. The question is, what happens when a warrior species has no wars to fight? The answers seem to be depression, anxiety, and a desperate search for meaning in meaningless activities. That evening, the alien scouts completed their survey of Earth's defenses. Their reports would have shocked any human military analyst. Orbital weapons platforms were decorative. Ground forces existed only on paper. The humans had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had voluntarily disarmed themselves completely. The scout ships transmitted their findings to the fleet, waiting beyond the solar system. The data was clear. Earth would surrender without a fight. The humans had grown soft and weak in their peace. Conquest would be simple, quick, and profitable. But the scouts had missed something crucial in their scans. They had measured weapons and counted soldiers, but they had not measured the human spirit. They had not detected the restless energy that burned in every human heart. They had not recognized the signs of a warrior species desperately hungry for a worthy enemy. The fleet began its approach to Earth, confident in their superiority. Soon they would learn that bringing war to humanity was like bringing matches to a warehouse full of dynamite. The humans were not weak. They were not soft. They were simply waiting. In her laboratory, Dr. Stone reviewed the latest psychological profiles. The depression rates were climbing, but so was something else. Underneath the malaise, she detected a strange pattern of brain activity. It looked almost like anticipation, as if humanity was unconsciously preparing for something. She filed her report with a recommendation for further study, not knowing that within days her research would become irrelevant. The great malaise was about to end, replaced by something far more dangerous and infinitely more satisfying. The long peace was almost over. Ambassador Lisa Cross walked across the landing field where humanity would meet its first alien visitors. The massive ships had appeared overnight, blocking out stars with their dark hulls. Each vessel was larger than any city on Earth, bristling with what looked like weapons ports and sensor arrays. The aliens had sent a message in perfect English, requesting a meeting with Earth's leaders. The Global Council had celebrated for hours. First contact was finally happening, just as they had always hoped. Lisa felt honored to represent humanity in this historic moment. She did not notice the way the alien ships had positioned themselves over major population centers. She did not recognize the formation as a standard intimidation pattern used by conquerors throughout the galaxy. She saw only the fulfillment of humanity's greatest dream. High Chancellor Mortis descended from his flagship with the confidence of someone who had done this 47 times before. Each previous species had followed the same predictable pattern. First came fear, then desperate attempts at negotiation, finally submission when they realized resistance was hopeless. The humans waiting for him looked soft and unprepared. No weapons, no armor, just formal diplomatic clothing and nervous smiles. Their leader, a middle-aged woman with graying hair, stepped forward with her hand extended in what his cultural database identified as a gesture of greeting. "Welcome to Earth," Ambassador Cross said warmly. "We're honored to meet you. This is the greatest day in human history." Mortis studied her carefully. Either she was an exceptional actor, or she genuinely did not understand the situation. Behind him, his military advisors were equally puzzled. War Leader Hask whispered in his ear, "Chancellor, their cities have no defensive barriers. Their skies show no military patrols. Either this is an elaborate trap, or they truly have no idea why we're here." Mortis decided to proceed with the standard protocol. "I am High Chancellor Mortis of the Galactic Hegemony. We have come to offer your species membership in our great coalition." "How wonderful," Lisa replied. "We've been hoping to join the galactic community for centuries. What does membership involve?" This was not the expected response. Mortis felt a flicker of uncertainty. "Membership requires acknowledgement of hegemony authority over your world. Your military forces will be disbanded. Your resources will be managed by our Economic Council. Your people will serve where needed throughout our territory." The humans began whispering among themselves. Mortis waited for the usual protests, the angry demands, the futile threats. Instead, Lisa Cross looked confused. "I'm sorry, but that sounds more like conquest than membership. Perhaps there's been a translation error." Mortis felt his patience slipping. "There is no error. You will submit to hegemony rule, or we will take your world by force." This is how things work in the galaxy. Resistance only brings suffering. The change in the humans was immediate and visible. The nervous smiles disappeared. Lisa Cross stepped backward, her face pale. Around the landing field, the crowd of human observers began talking in urgent, excited whispers. "Are you threatening us?" Lisa asked quietly. "I am stating facts," Mortis replied. "We have conquered 47 worlds. Yours will be the 48th. You have one planetary rotation to consider our offer. After that, we begin bombardment of your cities." He expected tears, begging, or panic. Instead, something extraordinary happened. Lisa Cross began to smile. Not a nervous diplomatic smile, but something genuine and almost predatory. Around the landing field, the same expression appeared on human faces. General Ward received the emergency communication while reviewing historical battle plans for his weekly lecture. The message was simple. The aliens were invaders, not visitors. Humanity had 24 hours to surrender or face military action. For the first time in decades, Ward felt truly alive. His hands shook with excitement as he activated communication channels that had been dormant for centuries. Emergency protocols that existed only in theoretical documents suddenly became operational reality. "All department heads, report immediately to the war room," he broadcast. "This is not a drill." The response was instantaneous. Officers who had spent their careers studying ancient battles suddenly had purpose. Simulation became reality. Theory became practice. Dr. Stone watched the news broadcast from her laboratory. The reporter was struggling to maintain professional composure while describing humanity's first contact with hostile aliens. Behind him, she could see crowds gathering in the streets. But they were not panicking. They were celebrating. "This is incredible," her assistant Dr. Martinez said, reviewing real-time psychological data. "Depression levels are dropping by the hour. Anxiety indicators are shifting toward anticipation. It's like the entire species is waking up from a long sleep." Emily nodded, fascinated by the readings. "Look at the brain activity patterns. The areas associated with strategic thinking are lighting up across the population. Combat readiness indicators are through the roof." On the screens, they watched humans streaming toward military recruitment centers that had been empty for generations. The lines stretched for blocks. Young people who had seemed lost and purposeless yesterday were now focused and determined. Captain Hill had been teaching military history at the University of Mars when the call came. Within hours, she was aboard a transport heading back to Earth. Around her, former professors and museum curators were transforming into soldiers. The change was remarkable to witness. "I never thought I'd get to use my knowledge for real," said Professor North, a specialist in space warfare theory. "I've spent 40 years studying battles that happened centuries ago. Now I might get to fight my own." The enthusiasm was infectious. Everyone seemed energized in a way that Hill had never seen before. As if humanity had been holding its breath for 200 years and finally could exhale. Back on the flagship, High Chancellor Mortis reviewed intelligence reports with growing confusion. Instead of surrender preparations, the humans were mobilizing for war. Ancient military installations were coming online. Civilian factories were rapidly retooling for weapons production. "This makes no sense," War Leader Hask reported. "They have no significant military assets, no experienced officers, no recent combat history. Why would they choose to fight?" Observer Quinn, the hegemony specialist in alien psychology, studied the data with increasing concern. "Chancellor, I recommend we reconsider our approach. The human behavior patterns are unprecedented. In 47 previous conquests, no species has responded to our ultimatum with celebration." Mortis dismissed the concern. "They are delusional. One bombardment of a major city will restore their sanity." But privately, he wondered why the humans seemed so eager for a fight they could not possibly win. The deadline approached rapidly. Across Earth, humanity prepared for war with an efficiency that surprised even their own leaders. Military academies reopened overnight. Weapon designs that existed only in historical archives were updated with modern technology. Combat doctrines were dusted off and adapted for space warfare. Most remarkably, morale remained impossibly high. This was not the grim determination of a species facing extinction. This was the excitement of a species finally doing what it was born to do. Ambassador Cross delivered humanity's final message to the aliens with a smile that never wavered. "High Chancellor Mortis, we have considered your offer carefully. Our answer is no. We will not submit to conquest. We will not surrender our freedom. If you want our world, you will have to take it from us. She paused, her smile widening. We look forward to the attempt. The factory had produced luxury hover cars yesterday. Today it churned out military drones with weapon systems based on designs from Earth's violent past. The transformation took less than 18 hours, accomplished by workers who attacked their new task with frightening enthusiasm. Engineer Marcus Webb supervised the conversion with barely contained excitement. For 20 years he had designed entertainment vehicles that served no real purpose. Now he was building machines of war, and the work felt more meaningful than anything he had ever done. Production line 7 is ready, his supervisor reported. We can manufacture 200 combat drones per hour. Marcus nodded, already planning improvements. The basic design was good, but humans had always excelled at adapting weapons for specific purposes. These drones could be faster, more maneuverable, more lethal. All across Earth, similar scenes played out. Orbital construction platforms that had built tourist stations now assembled warships. Research laboratories that had focused on improving entertainment technology turned their attention to military applications. Humanity's industrial capacity, dormant for generations, awakened like a sleeping giant. General Ward stood in the command center that had been a museum exhibit 48 hours earlier. Now it bustled with activity, as officers coordinated the largest military mobilization in human history. Every screen showed troop movements, production statistics, and strategic planning sessions. Recruitment numbers are beyond our projections, Colonel Rivers reported. We have 15 million volunteers for military service. That's more than our entire population from the last war. Ward was not surprised. The moment humanity learned they faced a real enemy, citizens had flooded recruitment centers. The lines contained young people seeking purpose, middle-aged professionals abandoning comfortable careers, and elderly citizens who remembered stories of their warrior ancestors. What about training? Ward asked. That's the remarkable part, sir. Combat simulation scores are off the charts. Tactical thinking assessments show natural aptitude we've never seen before. It's as if military knowledge is encoded in their genetics. Ward understood. Humans had evolved as hunters and warriors. 2 centuries of peace had not changed their fundamental nature, only suppressed it. Now that suppression was ending with explosive force. Captain Hill led her squad through urban warfare training in the ruins of old Detroit. The abandoned city had become humanity's largest military exercise area overnight. Her soldiers moved through the concrete jungle with instincts that seemed to come from nowhere. Contact. 200 meters. Sergeant Blake whispered into his comm unit. The squad responded instantly, flowing into tactical positions without conscious thought. Their movements were coordinated, efficient, and deadly. These were not the actions of newly trained recruits. These were the responses of born predators. How do they know this? Hill wondered aloud, watching her soldiers execute a flanking maneuver they had never practiced. We've been training for 6 days. They fight like veterans. The answer came from Dr. Stone, who had been studying human psychology during the mobilization. Her research revealed something that should have been obvious, but had been ignored during the long peace. Warfare is humanity's defining characteristic, she explained to the Global Council via emergency broadcast. We didn't just learn to fight. We evolved to fight. Our brains are structured for tactical thinking. Our social systems are designed for military organization. Our technology develops fastest under wartime pressure. She displayed brain scans showing neural activity during combat training. Look at these patterns. Areas of the brain that remained dormant during peacetime are now fully active. Humans are literally becoming more intelligent as they prepare for war. The implications were staggering. Humanity's golden age of peace had actually been a period of mental suppression. War was not humanity's weakness, but their greatest strength. Admiral Stone commanded the hastily assembled space fleet from the bridge of the newly commissioned warship Retribution. Around her, officers who had spent careers managing civilian space traffic now coordinated military operations with natural skill. Alien fleet movements? She asked. They're maintaining position above our major cities, Lieutenant Foster reported. Standard intimidation formation. They expect us to surrender when bombardment begins. Admiral Stone smiled coldly. They clearly don't understand who they're dealing with. What's our fleet status? 1,200 combat vessels ready for deployment. Another 800 will be operational within 6 hours. The numbers would have been impossible to achieve through normal military planning. But humanity was not operating normally. Every civilian ship had been converted for war. Every space station had become a weapons platform. Every asteroid mining operation now produced materials for the war effort. Most importantly, every human involved in the process worked with dedication that bordered on obsession. They labored 18 hours a day without complaint. They solved engineering problems in hours that should have taken months. They transformed an entirely peaceful civilization into a military superpower in less than a week. The aliens watching from orbit struggled to understand what they were seeing. Observer Quinn compiled reports that defied all previous experience. Chancellor, the humans have achieved impossible production rates. Their industrial output has increased by 2,000% in 4 days. They're building warships faster than we can count them. High Chancellor Mortis reviewed the data with growing concern. How is this possible? They had no military infrastructure. They're converting everything, War Leader Hask reported. Civilian factories, research facilities, entertainment centers. Their entire society is becoming militarized. And their morale? Mortis asked. That's the most disturbing aspect. They're not afraid. They're excited. Our psychological warfare specialists report that human enthusiasm for combat is increasing daily. This is contrary to all known patterns of species behavior under threat. Mortis had conquered 47 worlds, but he had never encountered anything like this. Every other species had shown fear, desperation, or resigned acceptance. The humans showed anticipation. In the underground training facilities beneath Geneva, humanity's best strategic minds worked on battle plans that incorporated lessons from every war in human history. They studied Roman tactics and medieval siege warfare. They analyzed World War strategies and space combat theories. They created hybrid approaches that combined ancient wisdom with modern technology. Professor North, the former academic who had studied theoretical space warfare, found himself designing real battle plans for the first time in his life. The work was intoxicating. We have advantages they don't expect, he explained to the strategy committee. They think like conquerors who rely on superior technology and overwhelming force. We think like survivors who adapt to any situation. The human battle plans reflected this difference. Where aliens planned direct assaults, humans prepared ambushes. Where aliens relied on standard formations, humans created chaos. Where aliens expected conventional warfare, humans planned the unconventional. They're used to enemies who fight to protect their homes, General Ward observed. They're not prepared for enemies who fight because they enjoy it. The Psychological Warfare Division, led by Commander Blake, developed strategies that would have horrified the old peaceful humanity. They studied alien communication patterns and identified weaknesses in hegemony morale. They prepared broadcasts designed to spread fear and confusion among enemy forces. We want them to understand something, Blake explained to her team. They didn't bring war to a peaceful species. They brought war to a species that has been waiting 200 years for a worthy enemy. As the week progressed, humanity's transformation accelerated. Combat training that should have taken months was completed in days. Weapon systems that should have required years of development became operational in hours. Military doctrines that should have needed decades of refinement were perfected through intuitive understanding. The aliens had expected to face a defenseless civilization. Instead, they found themselves confronting the awakening of humanity's true nature. The long peace was ending, and something far more dangerous was taking its place. On the final day before combat began, Admiral Stone addressed the human fleet from her flagship. Her words were broadcast to every ship, every station, and every military installation across the solar system. For 2 centuries, we have lived in peace. We built a perfect society. We eliminated want, suffering, and conflict. We achieved everything our ancestors dreamed of achieving. She paused, looking out at the alien fleet that would soon discover the true nature of humanity. But we forgot who we are. We are not a peaceful species that learned to fight. We are a fighting species that learned to make peace. Today we remember. High Chancellor Mortis gave the order to begin bombardment at precisely noon, Earth Standard Time. The hegemony fleet opened fire on 3 major cities simultaneously, expecting the usual result: massive casualties, civilian panic, and immediate surrender. The first surprise came within minutes. Instead of helpless targets, the cities erupted with defensive fire. Hidden weapon systems emerged from buildings that had appeared to be shopping centers and office complexes. The orbital bombardment met a wall of return fire that no previous conquest had produced. The second surprise came when human ships appeared throughout the asteroid belt. Emerging from hiding places the aliens had not known existed. The hegemony had been watching Earth, but humanity had been preparing everywhere. Admiral Stone coordinated the defense from deep within the asteroid field, where her fleet had spent the week preparing the most elaborate ambush in military history. Every rock large enough to hide a ship contained human forces. Every mining station had become a fortress. All units execute Thunder Run, she commanded. What followed was unlike anything in the hegemony's experience. Human ships did not form neat battle lines or follow predictable attack patterns. They swarmed like angry insects, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before retaliation was possible. Captain Hill led her destroyer wing in a maneuver that would have been impossible for most species to coordinate. Her ships moved through the asteroid field at speeds that seemed suicidal, using gravitational slingshots around spinning rocks to achieve impossible acceleration. "Target the command ship," she ordered, identifying the hegemony flagship through its communication patterns. Human electronic warfare specialists had spent the week learning alien frequencies and breaking their encryption codes. Her attack came from below the orbital plane, where no sane military commander would expect threats. Hill's ships emerged from behind a large asteroid moving at maximum velocity, fired every weapon they carried, and vanished back into the rock field before the aliens could respond. The damage was not critical, but the psychological impact was devastating. The hegemony flagship, which had never taken damage in 47 conquests, now bore scars from primitive human weapons. War leader Hask tried to coordinate his forces against an enemy that refused to behave logically. "They're not following standard fleet tactics," he reported to Mortis. "They attack in small groups, retreat when we respond, then attack from different directions. Then adapt our formations to counter their strategy," Mortis ordered. "Sir, they don't have a strategy. They have hundreds of small strategies. Every ship seems to be operating independently, but somehow they're coordinated. It's like fighting a swarm of intelligent insects." The human approach to warfare reflected their species' greatest strength: adaptability. Where the hegemony relied on proven tactics that had worked against 47 previous enemies, humans invented new tactics every few minutes. Commander Blake led the psychological warfare campaign from a hidden base on Mars. Her broadcasts reached hegemony forces throughout the system, carrying messages designed to undermine alien morale. "Attention, hegemony fleet." Her voice echoed across alien communication channels. "You have made a serious error. You came here expecting to conquer another defenseless world. Instead, you have awakened something that your species should fear." The messages were accompanied by footage of human war preparations, civilians volunteering for combat duty with enthusiasm, factory workers building weapons while singing, soldiers training with smiles on their faces. "Look at us," Blake continued. "Do we seem afraid? Do we seem defeated? We are not fighting to survive. We are fighting because this is what we were born to do." Observer Quinn analyzed the psychological warfare with growing alarm. "Chancellor, these broadcasts are affecting our crew morale. Our soldiers are beginning to question the wisdom of this conquest." "Increase discipline protocols," Mortis ordered. "Sir, that may not be sufficient. The humans are not trying to convince our forces to surrender. They're trying to convince them that humanity enjoys warfare. The implications are disturbing." Meanwhile, human engineering teams worked around the clock to reverse engineer captured alien technology. Unlike previous hegemony enemies, humans did not simply study alien weapons. They improved them. Engineer Webb led a team that captured an alien fighter during the first day's combat. Within 6 hours, they had dismantled its weapons systems and analyzed its propulsion technology. Within 12 hours, they had incorporated alien innovations into human designs. "Their energy weapons are more efficient than ours," Webb reported to General Ward. "But their targeting systems are inferior. Their ships are faster but less maneuverable. Their armor is stronger but designed for different types of damage." The analysis revealed something important about hegemony warfare. They were used to fighting enemies who used similar technology and tactics. They had never faced an opponent who could adapt and innovate during active combat. "Modify our weapons to exploit their armor weaknesses," Ward ordered. Upgrade our ships with their propulsion systems. Show them what happens when humans get our hands on superior technology. The results appeared in the second major engagement, when human forces attacked the hegemony supply convoy. The alien ships found themselves facing weapons that used their own technology against them, operated by crews who had learned to fight dirty over millions of years of evolution. Sergeant Blake led a boarding party onto an alien supply ship, demonstrating another human specialty, close-quarters combat. The hegemony Marines were larger and stronger than humans, but they had never fought an enemy that used psychological warfare as a tactical weapon. Surprise, Blake shouted as his team burst through the alien airlock, weapons firing and voices raised in what sounded like celebration rather than battle cries. The alien defenders had been trained to deal with desperate enemies fighting for survival. They had no preparation for enemies who seemed to be enjoying themselves. Human laughter echoing through the corridors was more unnerving than screams of rage would have been. The boarding action succeeded beyond all expectations. Not only did humans capture valuable supplies and intelligence, but they took their first alien prisoners. The interrogations that followed revealed the true scope of the hegemony and the fear that humanity's unexpected resistance was spreading throughout their territory. Other worlds are asking questions, admitted the captured hegemony officer during questioning. They want to know why the conquest of Earth is taking so long. Some are wondering if they could resist as well. This information led to another innovation in human warfare, propaganda aimed at encouraging rebellion throughout the hegemony. Commander Blake's psychological warfare teams began broadcasting beyond Earth's system, reaching oppressed worlds throughout the galaxy. People of the galaxy, her messages began, you are not powerless. The hegemony survives because you believe they are invincible. We are proving that they are not. We are showing that resistance is possible. The broadcast included footage of human victories, demonstrations of captured alien technology, and most importantly, images of human soldiers who clearly enjoyed their work. The message was clear. The hegemony could be beaten by people who refused to be afraid. High Chancellor Mortis reviewed the weekly reports with growing frustration. What should have been a simple conquest was becoming a prolonged war. Worse, other hegemony territories were reporting increased unrest and resistance activities. The humans are spreading something, Observer Quinn warned. Not just military tactics, but ideas. The concept that warfare can be enjoyable rather than necessary. The belief that smaller forces can defeat larger ones through superior motivation. How many ships have we lost? Mortis asked. 47 destroyed, 38 severely damaged, 12 captured. The humans have lost over 200 vessels, but they continue building replacements faster than we can destroy them. War Leader Hask added his own concerns. Sir, our tactical advantage is eroding. They learn from every engagement. They adapt faster than any species we've encountered. They're beginning to outfight us with our own technology. The truth was becoming unavoidable. The hegemony had brought war to a species that was simply better at warfare than they were. Humanity's centuries of peace had not made them weak. It had made them hungry. Now that hunger was being fed, and the results were terrifying to witness. As the battle for Earth's system continued, both sides learned important lessons. The hegemony learned that superior technology and numbers did not guarantee victory against an enemy that refused to follow conventional rules. Humanity learned that their darkest instincts were also their greatest strengths. The war was far from over, but the outcome was no longer certain. For the first time in 500 years, a hegemony conquest was in doubt, and across the galaxy, other oppressed species were beginning to believe that resistance might be possible after all. The alien prisoner wore the uniform of a hegemony communications officer, but his eyes held something the humans had never seen before in their captives: hope. Commander Blake studied him across the interrogation table, sensing that this conversation would be different from the others. Your name is unpronounceable, Blake said, reviewing the translation device readings. I'll call you Charlie. The alien nodded slowly. Charlie is acceptable. You are the human who broadcasts to our worlds? I am. Are you here to tell me our messages are being received? Charlie leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. I am here to tell you that 17 worlds have declared independence from the hegemony in the past month. Your war has become something larger than Earth's defense. Blake felt a surge of satisfaction. The psychological warfare campaign was exceeding all expectations. Which worlds? The mining colonies in the Vega system were first, then the agricultural worlds near Procyon. Yesterday, the entire Centauri manufacturing sector announced they would no longer accept hegemony governance. This was better than any military victory. Humanity was not just defending itself. It was inspiring a galactic revolution. Blake immediately transmitted this intelligence to Admiral Stone, who shared it with the entire human fleet. The news energized humanity's war effort beyond measure. They were no longer fighting alone against overwhelming odds. They were leading a rebellion that spanned the galaxy. Captain Hill received new orders while patrolling the outer system in her upgraded destroyer. Human engineering teams had completely rebuilt her ship using captured alien technology. But the improvements went far beyond simple reverse engineering. Your target is the hegemony supply depot at Titan, Admiral Stone's message explained. Intelligence indicates they're preparing a major offensive. Destroy their fuel reserves and capture their strategic planning computers. Hill smiled as she reviewed the mission parameters. 3 months ago, attacking a heavily defended alien installation would have been impossible. Today it was just another opportunity to demonstrate human superiority in warfare. Her strike force consisted of 12 ships, each crewed by humans who had discovered they possessed an intuitive understanding of space combat. They approached Titan using an attack pattern based on ancient Viking raids, adapted for 3-dimensional space warfare. The hegemony defenders expected a frontal assault from the most logical attack vector. Instead, Hill's ships emerged from Titan's methane clouds, moving in a complex spiral formation that confused alien sensors and split their defensive fire. Remember, Hill broadcast to her squadron, we're not just destroying their supplies. We're sending a message to every hegemony force in the galaxy. Humans don't just fight to win. We fight to dominate. The attack was devastatingly effective. Human weapons, now enhanced with alien technology, tore through defenses that had protected hegemony installations for centuries. More importantly, Hill's boarding teams captured extensive intelligence about hegemony military operations throughout the galaxy. The intelligence revealed something remarkable. The war was spreading faster than anyone had anticipated. The hegemony was facing rebellions on 43 worlds, with more declaring independence daily. Their military forces were stretched thin, trying to maintain control over an empire that was collapsing from within. General Ward studied the captured data in his command center, which had evolved from a museum exhibit into the nerve center of a galactic revolution. The strategic situation was beyond his most optimistic projections. They're losing control, Colonel Rivers reported. Hegemony forces are being recalled from expansion operations to deal with rebellions. Their entire military strategy is shifting from conquest to damage control. Ward nodded, recognizing the signs from humanity's own military history. They're making the classic mistake of trying to hold too much territory with insufficient forces. Every rebellion they suppress creates 2 more. The human strategy evolved accordingly. Instead of focusing solely on defending Earth, they began launching offensive operations to support rebellions throughout hegemony space. Human ships appeared wherever the aliens least expected them, carrying weapons and tactical advisors to newly independent worlds. Dr. Stone observed the war's psychological impact from her research facility on Mars. The transformation of human society continued to accelerate, but in unexpected directions. Instead of becoming more militaristic, humanity was becoming more creative. Combat is stimulating human innovation beyond anything we've ever recorded, she reported to the Global Council. Scientific breakthroughs are occurring daily. Engineering solutions that should take years are being developed in hours. It's as if warfare is unlocking human potential. The evidence was overwhelming. Human technology was advancing faster during 6 months of war than it had during 20 years of peace. Weapon systems, propulsion technology, communication networks, medical treatments. Every field was experiencing rapid progress driven by military necessity. More remarkably, human morale remained impossibly high. Instead of war weariness, the population showed increasing enthusiasm for the conflict. Recruitment centers still had waiting lists. Factory workers competed to exceed production quotas. Even civilian scientists volunteered for dangerous research projects. Admiral Stone coordinated the largest human offensive of the war from her flagship, now leading a fleet of over 3,000 vessels. The target was the hegemony stronghold at Wolf 359, a heavily fortified system that controlled major supply routes throughout their territory. "This is not just a military operation," she explained to her fleet commanders. "This is a demonstration. We want every species in the galaxy to see that the hegemony can be defeated anywhere, anytime by anyone willing to fight." The battle plan reflected humanity's evolution as a military force. No longer dependent on guerrilla tactics and ambushes, they now possessed the strength for direct confrontation. But their approach remained uniquely human, unpredictable, innovative, and psychologically devastating. The attack began with a massive electronic warfare assault that shut down hegemony communications across the entire system. Before the aliens could respond, human ships appeared simultaneously from 12 different directions, making it impossible to coordinate defensive measures. Captain Hill led the assault on the primary fortress, her squadron diving through the installation's defensive fire like fighters performing aerial stunts. Her crews had learned to use their ships like extensions of their own bodies, achieving maneuvers that alien pilots could not match. "Target their command center," she ordered, identifying the fortress's nerve center through its communication emissions. "Let's cut the head off this snake." The battle was shorter and more decisive than anyone had expected. Hegemony forces, demoralized by months of defeats and rebellions, offered minimal resistance. When the human fleet withdrew, Wolf 359 was in the hands of a coalition of newly independent species. The psychological impact reverberated throughout the galaxy. The hegemony's reputation for invincibility was shattered. Dozens of additional worlds declared independence in the following weeks, confident that human support would help them maintain their freedom. High Chancellor Mortis faced the worst crisis in hegemony history. His empire was dissolving, his fleets were retreating, and his authority was being questioned by his own subordinates. "We must negotiate," Observer Quinn advised during an emergency council session. "The humans have proven they cannot be conquered through conventional means." "Negotiate," Mortis roared. "We do not negotiate with inferior species." "Sir," War Leader Hask interrupted quietly, "the humans are no longer inferior. They may never have been inferior. We simply failed to recognize their true nature." The admission was devastating. For 500 years, the hegemony had believed in their own superiority. Now they faced the possibility that they had encountered a species that was simply better at warfare than they were. Mortis reviewed the intelligence reports one final time, searching for some advantage that could reverse the situation. Instead, he found only evidence of human superiority in every aspect of military operations. Tactics, strategy, innovation, morale, and most importantly, the ability to inspire others to fight. "What do the humans want?" he asked finally. "Unknown," Quinn replied. "They have made no demands for territory or resources. They seem to be fighting for the principle that no species should be enslaved by another. The concept was alien to hegemony thinking. They fought for conquest, for resources, for power. The idea of fighting for abstract principles was incomprehensible." As the war entered its 7th month, the balance of power had shifted completely. The hegemony was no longer an expanding empire but a contracting remnant, holding only their core systems while the galaxy celebrated its newfound freedom. Humanity had achieved something unprecedented in galactic history. They had not just defeated a superior enemy, but inspired a revolution that freed dozens of worlds from centuries of oppression. The war was not over, but its outcome was no longer in doubt. The only question remaining was whether the hegemony would surrender gracefully or force humanity to demonstrate just how creative they could be when their patience finally ran out. The hegemony capital world of Dominion Prime had never known the sound of enemy weapons. For 800 years it had stood as the untouchable center of galactic power, protected by fleets that had conquered half the known galaxy. Today, human ships filled its skies like storm clouds. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of her flagship, watching the most heavily defended world in hegemony space prepare for its first and final battle. Around her, officers who had been civilians a year ago coordinated the largest military operation in human history. "All fleets report ready," Captain Hill announced from her position as Fleet Tactical Coordinator. 16,000 vessels in attack formation. Ground forces prepared for planetary assault. Stone nodded but felt no satisfaction in the overwhelming display of force. Humanity had grown beyond the need to prove their military superiority. They had demonstrated it conclusively across 40 star systems. This final battle was not about conquest. It was about ending the war. Open communication channels to the hegemony leadership, she ordered. High Chancellor Mortis appeared on the main screen, his alien features showing exhaustion and defeat. Behind him, the ornate throne room that had once symbolized absolute power looked empty and fragile. "Admiral Stone," he said, his voice carrying the weight of inevitable surrender. "You have achieved the impossible. No species in galactic history has ever defeated the hegemony." "Your empire is finished," Stone replied without emotion. 68 worlds have declared independence. Your fleets are scattered or destroyed. Your authority exists only on this world, and a handful of loyalist systems. Mortis studied the human admiral with something approaching respect. "What are your terms for surrender?" The question hung in space for a long moment. This was the decision that would define humanity's role in galactic civilization. They could become conquerors themselves, ruling through the same fear and oppression the hegemony had used. They could demand tribute, territory, and submission from their defeated enemies. Instead, Admiral Stone smiled, the same predatory expression that had confused the aliens during first contact, but now they understood its meaning. Unconditional surrender of all hegemony military forces, immediate release of all enslaved populations, recognition of the independence of all rebellious worlds, and establishment of the Terran Confederation as guarantor of galactic peace. Mortis blinked in confusion. "You want no territory? No tribute? No slaves?" "We want something much more valuable," Stone replied. "We want a galaxy where no species can do to others what you tried to do to us." The surrender ceremony took place on the steps of the Hegemony Capitol building, broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Representatives from newly independent civilizations gathered to witness the end of 8 centuries of oppression. General Ward accepted the formal surrender documents, his weathered hand steady as he signed humanity's name to the most important treaty in galactic history. Around him stood the leaders of dozens of species who had thrown off hegemony rule with human support. "The galactic hegemony is dissolved," Ward announced to the assembled crowd and the billions watching across the galaxy. "In its place, we established the Terran Confederation, a voluntary alliance of free worlds dedicated to mutual defense and cooperation." The cheers that erupted from the crowd were heard on worlds hundreds of light years away. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy knew peace without oppression. Dr. Stone observed the ceremony from Earth, where she continued studying humanity's transformation during the war. Her final report would become the definitive analysis of how conflict had changed human civilization. "We discovered something remarkable about our species," she wrote. "We are not violent by nature. We are protective by nature. The aggression that made us so effective in warfare was actually our instinct to defend what we value. When we had nothing to defend, we became depressed. When we had everything to defend, we became unstoppable." The psychological data supported her conclusions. Human aggression levels were already returning to pre-war norms, but satisfaction and purpose remained at historic highs. Humanity had found its role in the galaxy, protector of the weak, enemy of oppressors, and guarantor of freedom. Captain Hill established the first Confederation Naval Academy on Mars, where officers from dozens of species learned human military tactics and philosophy. The curriculum focused not on conquest but on defense, not on domination but on liberation. "The goal of warfare," she explained to her mixed species classes, "is not to destroy your enemy but to protect what you love. The moment you fight for any other reason, you become the enemy yourself." Her students included former hegemony officers who had defected during the war, aliens who had never known military service, and humans who wanted to serve as peacekeepers rather than conquerors. Together they formed the foundation of a new kind of military force. The Confederation grew rapidly as more worlds requested membership. Unlike the hegemony's forced expansion, this growth was entirely voluntary. Species joined because they wanted protection from future oppressors, access to human military technology, and participation in the galaxy's first truly democratic government. Commander Blake established the Confederation's intelligence service, but its mission was prevention rather than conquest. Her agents worked to identify potential conflicts before they escalated, mediate disputes between species, and locate any remaining hegemony loyalists who might threaten the peace. "Our job is to ensure that no species ever again achieves the power to enslave others," she explained to her recruits. "We are not spies. We are gardeners tending a galaxy where freedom can grow." The transformation of galactic civilization was rapid and comprehensive. Trade replaced tribute. Cooperation replaced conquest. The vast resources that had been devoted to hegemony military expansion were redirected toward exploration, scientific research, and improving life for billions of sentient beings. Humanity adapted to their new role with the same enthusiasm they had shown for warfare. Engineers who had designed weapons now built hospitals and schools on liberated worlds. Soldiers became teachers, sharing human knowledge of agriculture, medicine, and technology with species that had been kept deliberately primitive by their former rulers. The irony was not lost on anyone. A species that had achieved galactic dominance through superior warfare chose to use that dominance to eliminate warfare itself. Ambassador Cross, promoted to Secretary General of the Confederation, addressed the first galactic assembly from the former hegemony capital. Representatives from over 100 worlds gathered to establish the new government's principles. "We stand at a unique moment in galactic history," she began. "For the first time, the strongest military force in the galaxy serves not its own interests, but the interests of peace itself. The Confederation Charter that emerged from the Assembly established principles that would have been impossible under hegemony rule. The right of self-determination for all sentient species, the prohibition of slavery in any form, and the guarantee of mutual defense for all member worlds. Most importantly, it included the human doctrine. Any attempt by any species to establish dominance over others would be met by the full military force of the Confederation. Humanity had appointed itself the galaxy's permanent enemy of tyranny. High Chancellor Mortis spent his final years in comfortable exile on a peaceful agricultural world, writing memoirs that became required reading at Confederation academies. His analysis of humanity's military superiority was both bitter and insightful. "They did not defeat us through superior technology or greater numbers," he wrote. "They defeated us because they understood something we had forgotten. Warfare is not about destroying enemies, but about protecting what you love. The hegemony fought to conquer. Humanity fought to liberate. In the end, liberation proved stronger than conquest." As the first anniversary of the war's end approached, Earth celebrated with the same enthusiasm they had shown for the conflict itself. But the celebration was different now. It was the joy of purpose fulfilled rather than hunger satisfied. Admiral Stone, now Supreme Commander of Confederation forces, delivered the anniversary address from the bridge of her flagship, orbiting the former hegemony capital, as a permanent reminder that oppression would not be tolerated. "1 year ago, we thought we were fighting for our survival," she said to the assembled fleet and the galaxy beyond. "We discovered we were fighting for something much larger, the right of all beings to live free from fear." She paused, looking out at the peaceful worlds that had once cowered under hegemony rule. "The aliens brought war to humanity, expecting us to be crushed by it. Instead, we smiled and said, at last, because we finally understood our purpose. We are not conquerors, we are liberators. We are not destroyers, we are protectors. We are the galaxy's immune system against tyranny." The transmission ended with images of human ships patrolling the galaxy's trade routes, ensuring safe passage for all species, of human teachers working on primitive worlds, sharing knowledge freely, of human engineers building infrastructure on worlds devastated by centuries of exploitation. Humanity had found their place in the universe. They were the warriors who fought so others wouldn't have to. They were the strong who protected the weak. They were the species that had turned the galaxy's capacity for war into its guarantee of peace. The long peace had ended, but something better had taken its place. A peace worth fighting for, protected by those who understood that sometimes the only way to preserve what you love is to be willing to destroy those who would take it away. And in the depths of space, human sensors continued their eternal watch, ready to respond to any threat with the same smile and the same words that had terrified the hegemony. At last,